Hello and welcome to the Saintly Sounder, your source for all things FIFA. Today's episode is part 2 of our Squad Building 101 series, the guide to building perfect teams. Today's episode is Moneyball, and it's basically central players from the center mid on up to strikers. So the way I approach creating squads is to take a Moneyball style approach here, and that is, if I can get 3 or 4 points per game, I'm going to win every time, and what players can increase my point per game total while also having a positive defensive impact on the field. I do this by focusing on a couple key stats. Free kicks, can he take them, or can he get his head on a free kick if I whip it in? Same with heading, can he get in a cross? Is he good at long shots? It really sucks to have a player 40 yards out in acres of space and not be able to shoot. Same with finesse shooting. Close finishing, you don't want him to miss sitters. And weak foot, if you have to constantly focus getting a guy on his strong foot, it takes away chances and could ultimately cost you games. And breakaways and skill dribbles, pretty self-explanatory. Tackling's also key, because if you limit the amount of possessions your opponent gets, they're not going to score as much, and that's going to increase your chances in a way you might not see right away, especially with balls won in your opponent's half. So center mids are normally going to be your thankless workers, your guys that you're going to need to do everything on the field. So that's why I like to have an average of 70 plus in all 6 stats. That doesn't mean a guy with 60 pace is automatically excluded, but this means they have to make up for it in a different way, like an 85 in passing or immense shooting or something like that. I say defensive stats should be in the high 90s because you do ask them to defend so much. Another opinion of mine, and some people might disagree, but long shots and shot power is a huge plus. It's something that I'll overlook a lot of other faults if a guy has, just because center mids find themselves in so much space in that 25 to 40 yard range. So here is a list of what I consider to be the perfect center mids. You have your all-arounders like Toure and Vidal, whose work rates are the only thing that really lets them down. You have your jacks of all trade, your Marquisios, your Ramirez's, who aren't as good at any one stat, but are really balanced type players that are an asset to any team. And then you have your slower, long shooters or really good passers, guys like your Schweinsteigers and your Gerrards, who can really be a calming presence and a person you can work your entire passing game through. Either way, having a balance of bruisers and jacks of all trade and good passers is the great way to build a squad, especially when you're playing in a center mid heavy formation, like my preferred 4-3-1-2 or a 4-1-2-1-2, the one with 4 center mids. Having a good balance there really allows you to be able to do anything and to hit your opponent with anything, which makes it very hard for you to become predictable. Center attacking mid is where you show what kind of player you are, because there's so many different kinds of styles. Work rate can be anything, as long as it really isn't more defensive than it is attacking. You don't want a guy lagging back, because he's really going to be responsible for building up your attacks. With that said, you need shooting, dribbling, and passing at least 75 in my opinion. The best ones are going to be higher than that. So here's just some of the center attacking mids you might find success with. You have the pacey guys like Di Maria. You have the center mids who can provide a defensive presence like Vidal and Toure. You have the tanks like Pogba and Kevin Prince Boateng. You have the all-arounders like De Bruyne. You have little guys like Di Natale. Any player on this list could be successful for somebody. It all depends on your style, and I can't point to anyone on this list and say don't buy him despite all the hype. All of these guys can be good for someone. You just have to figure out which one fits your style and your team best. So for strikers, you don't necessarily need to look just at Beast FC. If you're using a one striker formation, the only real requirement is high-low or medium-low work rates, because you want a guy that's going to stay high and get you goals, because you're counting on him to get the job done. For 2 striker formations, some people like high-low. I like to mix it up. I like one high-low striker and one high-high striker. Even though it's not popular in the community, I really like that second striker to come back a little bit and link up my play better. And so the key stats are going to be pace, shooting, and dribbling, of course. And the one advice I have when you're choosing a striker, play it like Moneyball. You just need goals and assists, and you need a guy who can create as much as he can score on his own, and you need a guy who can score in every way imaginable, because that's obviously going to increase your goal output. So here are my picks for striker. It's by no means comprehensive. There's going to be a lot of people who say other guys like Lacazette are also really good, but here's just some of the list to give you an idea of where to start. And if you're using a single striker formation, I would recommend you stick to the guys who are above 6 foot. You don't want to be giving away corner kick opportunities or free kick balls if you whip them in, simply because your guy's too small. Guys like Aguero in a single striker formation, I would not recommend them, because you're really going to become one-dimensional. You're either pacing or you're trying to just get off a crazy shot with Aguero, and while he might let you get away with that, you're missing out on whole other aspects of the game and will make you more predictable at higher levels. If you're using a double striker formation, I recommend going with the old English style, the high-low type guy. I have Aubameyang and Royce. They're both pacey, but Aubameyang stands at 6'2", which means I have an aerial option as well, and it really makes it hard to defend when you have one guy who's really tall and fast and one guy who's littler and more crafty. It really works together well. But ultimately, it's up to you. You have to find a guy that works well within your team and works well within your own personal play style. So I'm just going to give you my opinion about the special case kind of guys that don't really fit any of the ideal positions, yet they can be really good in certain teams. These guys are your Iniestas, your Chaffees, your Hernanes, your Fabregas, guys like Pirlo, guys that are really good playmakers but lack pace, strength, or a lot of all-around stats, and don't even really have shooting with the exception of Hernanes and Pirlo's free kicks. But for these guys, I recommend using a center mid heavy formation. So 4 center mids, 3 center mids, and then building really strong guys around them, the type of players that can cover and let a guy like Pirlo just pick the passes. Don't make him have a lot of defensive responsibilities or have him make a lot of the runs going forward and trying to get big shots in, because it's not going to work as well, and it's going to cost you a little bit. But if you let them sit as sort of that maestro pulling the strings while everyone else works around him, you're going to find a lot of success. Before I end this, I just want to make a quick note for those of you wondering where the wingers were in this, and I think it's because they're so playstyle dependent and formation dependent, and there's just so much variety between them. I couldn't do them justice in one video. They're not a one-size-fits-all kind of position where all kinds of different stats play a role depending on your formation. So I'm going to put it off to a third video, a smaller like specialty video where I focus more on tactics and wingers in particular. Alright, that was another long one. A lot of information packed in here. But if you found this at all interesting or helpful, like and subscribe. You can see it in action on Twitch at the Saintly Sounder. I don't start games until I have a formation and squad that really fits my personal mentalities that I've talked about here. You can see how it goes. If you just want to see if my advice is actually practical, you can check it out on Twitch. If Twitter's your thing, you can follow me at the Red Death 329. We have a new original series coming up with Team America taking on the world. We have Goals of the Week coming up, more squad builder advice later in the week. Until next time, see you on the pitch.